In this video, I'm going to show you an automation that is going to shave off a ton of time from your prospect research. It's particularly useful if you have a form on your website, like a contact form or a landing page where people have to fill in their details, or you've got a lead magnet that you want to give to people in exchange for some information about them. Instead of wasting 10 minutes researching an unqualified prospect, this is going to handle all of that for you. And it's going to split out the high priority prospects from the low priority prospects. So let's get into it. So to demonstrate how this automation works, I've created a fake finance company that helps businesses with their financial strategies. And what we're looking for is startups that have funding. And we've also categorized the different types of businesses that they are, because in finance, you know, depending on what their business model is, like whether they're SaaS or whether they're, you know, a technology company or whether they're like e-commerce or a marketplace or something, can make a big difference in terms of what advice you would give them and also whether or not you even want to work with them in the first place. So that's just our example today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try two different companies to put through, and then we're going to automatically qualify them. So the companies I have is I'm putting in Shopee, which is a marketplace or an e-commerce. And then I've got this one here, which is a materials company, which has a lot of funding and is in an early stage. So for the first company that is going to be interested in our financial advice, we're going to do Cusp AI. We're going to use an imaginary name, John, and then we're going to do John at Cusp AI. I have no clue if John works there. And then we're going to just do the website. We're going to do Cusp AI over here. And we're going to submit that on our website. So we're going to hit submit inquiry. And then we've got the form which has been executed. And after that, all we have to do is wait for our automation to run through. We've got an AI agent here that's doing a bunch of research, and then we're going to score the company. And then we should get, ideally, we should get a message on Slack telling us, hey, this is a really great lead. You should contact them. Okay, so we just got a message on Slack, and this one found out that Cusp AI is a really highly qualified lead. And basically, it's just given us the name, the email, but it's also shown our the business type that we've decided that they are, which is a deep tech company. It shows us the funding amounts, the date, and the series. And this is just an example to show high priority. So this would get sent to the sales team and say, okay, we need to get in touch with these guys right now. And now what I'm going to do is try the second one. And the next company, we're going to do John again, good old John. And we're going to do John at shopee.co.th. And then we're going to go www.shopee.co.th, and we're going to hit submit. So what's going to happen is there's basically two decisions that are going to happen. If it's a high priority lead, it's going to send us a message on Slack like it did for Cusp AI. And then if it's lower priority, it's going to send the lead to a marketing campaign. So we can send them regular emails and, you know, give them advice, or maybe we have like a lower tier product that we want to offer them, something like that. But just to create a distinction between the two. So we're just going to wait for that to finish, and then we'll show how it pops up in our marketing campaign. Okay, so I've just opened up my Instantly campaign, and here we've got John at shopee.co.th. So this one has been determined that it's a low priority or a low grade lead. Now that we've seen how the automation works, let's go through step by step through each different section to just show how it works under the hood, so that you can take the ideas from it and implement it in your own business. So I've just turned the automation off. And what we're going to do is first deal with how to actually get the information into n8n so we can run our workflow. For the example that I used, this one here, if I just go back, for my super amazing finance company, we've got this form entry field, and this connects to, I'll just reset all these. This connects to FormSpark. So FormSpark is a really popular form entry tool. There's a lot of different ones out there, but most of them will be able to do what I'm going to describe here. Pretty much all of them, I think, to be honest. If they don't have it, then it's probably they're pretty outdated, I think. But what we need is the ability to send a webhook. So in n8n, we've got our webhook node here. And what we want to do to get the data into n8n is copy our webhook. Because we've got it turned off right now, we're going to use the test URL. So in production, you would click on production and copy this webhook URL, but because we're using the test one, we're going to click on test and then we're going to select this webhook over here. So what we're going to do, we just copied that. We're going to go to our FormSpark page, and over here we're going to just paste the test webhook in, and then after that we're going to hit save. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just fill out my form again over here after I listen for the event. So we're going to click that, and then I'm going to write John, and I'll just do John. I'll just do the same example that I used before. So we'll do John at cusp.ai, and then we'll go www.cusp.ai. We're going to hit submit inquiry, and we should see this pop up here, all right? And it says node execute successfully. So this is the webhook, and in there we've got the body, which is the company email and name, and that's what we just filled out. So that's how you'll get it into n8n. Once it's in n8n, the first thing we want to do is do some research, right? So we've got this data in there, and we want to set up an AI agent to do the research that we want. So for my example, because I made an imaginary company which has an imaginary criteria for what's a good lead and what's not a good lead, we will just go through what I decided on. Obviously, you can make this as complicated or as simple as you want. It really depends on your use case. But for this one, I used a prompt which is the following. So I said, given the company and person details provided, do the following. And I wanted it to classify the company's business model into one of the following 4 categories. Obviously, that you can have as many categories as you like if this is what you want to do, like classify the business model. But I just chose deep tech, so that is things like materials companies, could be like blockchain, many different things, biology companies, etc. Things that are working on like scientific challenges is typically regarded as deep tech. For finance, usually they will have a different business model to something like SaaS. And then e-commerce and marketplaces, they also have different business models and would require different kinds of financial advice. And then after that, I also wanted to find out the company's funding rounds. So obviously if they had a funding round, then they probably need some money management and they need to strategize that. So I thought that would be a good thing to research for our AI agent. After that, I took the form entry details, so the things that we had here in our body. So we had like the company, that should be company website, but anyway, that's just on my website, on the fake website I made. Should be website, but it's company there. And then I got the name, email. I just pasted it in there using the JSON syntax in n8n. And then what we would get as a result is this. So this would just show the prompt that I have, and then down here it would show John, and then John at cusp.ai, and then the website cusp.ai. Another thing that I've done here is I've set the max iterations. So this is quite important if you don't want the AI agent to be running forever. It might finish within a certain number of iterations, but this is particularly a problem if you have a really, really complex task. So if you're asking it to research like a bajillion different things, then it might go for a very, very long time and be really, really expensive, and it might not get the result you want. So it's good to kind of limit the number of iterations that the AI agent can go through. What an iteration is basically the LLM decides what it needs to do, it picks a tool, and then it gets an observation from the tool, and then it decides, okay, given this information, what's the next step? Especially if you have a situation where you're trying to prove a negative, it might be searching for a long time. So a good example in this current setting, like with this financial company, would be if you wanted to know whether like someone didn't exist in the company. Like let's say you were looking to see whether a finance manager or a CFO didn't exist, and that would like make your product more valuable. Or like if it's a tech product and you wanted to know whether they have a CTO or not, and if they didn't have a CTO, that would be good. Then if you wrote a prompt which was like, determine whether they have a CFO or not, or prove that they don't have a CFO, then the AI agent is probably going to like search forever to prove the non-existence of something, and yeah, it can just blow up your bill and make things really expensive. So setting the max iterations means that it can only do a certain number of iterations before it's like, okay, boom, stops, and then it just carries on and keeps going in the workflow. So that's the reason I set it. You can set it higher. You can set it to 10 iterations or 20 if you want. For this example, I just set it to 5. So that's the AI agent prompt. For the tools, because it uses different tools in order to perform its actions, I set up a Google search and then I set up a read website. So these tools are HTTP requests that I created myself. The first one, what it does is it uses a service called SERPA Dev, which you can find over here. If I just type SERPA Dev. So this is basically a SERP API, and what that is that you can run a query through this API, and then it'll get the Google search results back. So it's very, very useful if you need to get structured data from Google instead of having to try to build your own scraper. Super useful. And then I used, for actually reading specific websites, I used something called Firecrawl, which you can have a look over here. So Firecrawl basically is a really, really good web scraper, and it's able to like pass different sort of bot preventative measures, which allows you to get many different websites. It probably won't be able to get things like LinkedIn. So if you wanted to identify like the company size or things like that from their LinkedIn, then it might fail at that. But for common websites, like if you need to look for funding rounds, like in the example that I had here, if you want to look at their websites, you want to read news articles, etc., then it's absolutely, it's great. So I do recommend it for that. So I just basically set these up, and then in the information for like Firecrawl and SERPA, you need to set up credentials. So once you create accounts for those, then you're going to have an API key. And then what I did is I just applied the API key here by, this one was Firecrawl, for example. So I have the generic credential type, and it's a bearer token, bearer auth. And then I just pasted my API key to create a new bearer auth in Firecrawl. Maybe I'll make a video on that just to make it a little bit clearer, which I'll paste in the comment section so you can have a look. And I'll do the same for the SERPA Dev. But what you do is you just paste the URL that's provided, and then in the body for the SERPA Dev, you have Q, which is the query. And then you allow the model to select what the value is. And then when you give it a task, it's automatically going to just put in the query, and then it's going to run the tool, get the search results back. So in the example that I had, it might say Cusp AI funding round as the query. And then it'll get the results back, and then the LLM will look at the results and determine, did it find what it wanted to find? And at that stage, it might decide, okay, either I need to do another Google search because that one didn't really work, or it might have some results in the search, and then it'll use Firecrawl to actually go to the URL and then read the URL to get more information from that URL. And in the Firecrawl example here as well, for this tool, we've just got the body parameter here, which is URL, and then the model will automatically put the URL in that it's trying to scrape and read the content from, and then after that it'll just bring it back as markdown, so that So in the Firecrawl API, you can specify the formats, and in this one, I just specified Markdown like this. So that what Markdown is basically, instead of giving you a bunch of HTML code, it's going to have it like neatly formatted for the LLM. So it uses less tokens and it's much less confusing for it. So I just use those tools for this one specifically. You can create and add as many tools as you like, but the more tools you add, then the more steps it might need in order to process the information. Obviously, it just depends on how much research you want it to do. And sometimes it's better to actually break down each task into its own agent if it's really, really complicated and you have a lot of different things you want to qualify. But anyway, moving on from that. So I'll just run that now since we've got our information here. We've got company, email, and name. So I'm going to hit execute step with our prompt, and we're going to see this thing running. So right now it's going through the LLM, does a Google search, looks at the website, goes back to the LLM, figures out what do I need to do next, does another Google search. Yeah, and as you can see, it's kind of going back and forth between these different things. Not sure if it'll finish before 5 iterations, but we'll see. All right, it's done. If we just double click on that. So this one, it stopped before the max iteration. So what we've got is this output here, which it's kind of summarized the results. Let's see if we can get it in a nice format. Okay, so we've got this one here. So this is showing all the information from Cusp AI. So materials discovery, so it says that it's deep tech, and then it's got all the information here. So what I wanted to do after that, after we've got the results, is I wanted to put it into a neatly structured format. So that way we can actually extract the information easily, and then we can sort of build our scoring system from that. So the next step is just a code step. Now, what this does is it looks at what the output from the agent is. So if it hit the max iterations when we were running it, what ends up happening is the output doesn't have anything in it, which is really frustrating and annoying. It just says agent stopped due to max iterations. In this case, it didn't, which is good. But if it does kind of cut it short, what ends up happening is we only have that as the output. And maybe I'll show you the example. So I'll just run this here so you can see what the output of this is. It should just be that over here, right? But if I, for example, in the agent, if I set that to 1 iteration and then I ran it, what we would get, if let it run, yeah, so it says agent stopped due to max iterations over here. And if it does that, if that's all that comes out, then the rest of the pipeline, the rest of the workflow, it doesn't really have any information to go by, which is kind of annoying and, you know, obviously not useful at all. So what I've done in this step is I basically said, okay, if that's what the output is, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the observations that our model had. So like, let's say it went to do a Google search, or it went to do went to read a website or whatever. I'm going to take that information instead. So over here we've got, we should get, the markdown information that came from the website that it researched. And that just allows us to have the information if, for example, it was going forever, we used all these tokens and our model was running, we want to get something back in return. So that just gives us the information that we need. And then we have another model here, which is going to take all this information that we've got, and it's going to put it into a neatly structured format. So I'll just run that and then I'll explain what it's doing. Yeah, so over here we've got our output, we've got the business type, which is deep tech. We've got our last funding amount, which is 100 million. We got the date that it happened, and then we got the last funding type, which is Series A. So this step basically just allows us to get the information no matter what, and then this step neatly structures it in terms of the information that we want specifically for our qualification of the lead. So the way that this works is we have this JSON structure, If you haven't worked with JSON, this might be a little bit complicated, but what it's kind of doing is just forcing the LLM to output to a certain format. So for business type, it takes all this information, and then I want it to output for the business type one of these 5 things. So if it found out that it was a deep tech company, I want it to output that. I want to output SaaS if it was SaaS, e-commerce if it was e-commerce, marketplace if it was a marketplace, and if it was something else, then other. And by specifying this enum, it allows it to do that instead of it just like writing a string that says, oh, this company was a deep tech company or something like that, because that then becomes a lot harder to like build a scoring structure for it, for us to be able to prioritize the lead. And this just allows it to be a lot more neat. Same with the funding amount. So if it didn't find a funding round, then that would just be empty. But if it does, then I want it to be in like a very neat format, which it has here. This one too, so this looks really mega complicated, but basically all it's saying is that I want to have the date of the funding in a year format, and then like, you know, month, and then day. And that's just what it's doing. And if there wasn't a funding round, then it would just be null or empty. And yeah, the same with this one. So the last funding type, for this one, I've specified it can either be a string or empty. And for the enum or the choices that it has, it can either be seed, Series A, Series B, or Series C. And if it's none of those, then it will just be empty as well. But for the case that we have here, it's picked Series A, it's picked the date, and it's picked the last funding amount. So once that's done, that's the research that we wanted it to do for this example. In this, you know, if you wanted to change this for your specific qualification needs, obviously you can add more fields and more information. You can also ask it to do some research on the actual person that submitted the form. In this example, we're just using the company information and some basic fields. But yeah, obviously you can modify it and change it as you need for your business. Now that we've done the research, we've got our information, what we're going to do is then build a scoring system for us to use. So there's a lot of different ways to build a scoring system. If you have structured information like I have now, where I've taken this information extractor and then I've outputted like the business type and the funding amount, you can start to build all these kind of like different logical equations if you want. If you have some skills at code, then that's quite doable. I've just built 2 different things here, which I'll show you. So there's one which is a code version, which basically the first step, we're taking the business type and we're just saying, okay, if it was deep tech, then it's 3 points. If it's SaaS, then we give it 3 points. If the company is e-commerce, then we give it 2 points. And for whatever reason in our finance business, we don't like marketplaces at all because they're a pain to work with. So we'll give them 0 points if it's a marketplace. So we're just taking the business type from the information extractor over here. And we're taking that, and then we're checking over here if it was deep tech, if that value is deep tech, then this will output 3. If it outputs something else like other, which is something that I added, then it wouldn't exist and it would just default to 0 points. As well as if it was marketplace, then it would default to 0 as well. And then after that, it just returns the business type score over here. So if we execute that, that should be 3. Yeah, so that's what we got over there. So that's how we're getting a score for the business type. For the funding round, I made it a LLM style extraction. So this one is a little bit more fuzzy. I did that for a reason, just to kind of show that you can build a scoring system for like, how do you say, like if you have something that's a little bit more vague that you want to classify, then you can do it with an LLM. One example would be like if you had a job description and you wanted to figure out in the job description, you know, did the job description mention these skills, right? Like let's say you wanted Python skills or whatever. You could use an LLM to actually figure out whether it had that in the job description or not, and you know it could just output a value. So in this example specifically, we've just taken like the funding information and I've said, okay, if the funding round is within 12 months of today's date and the amount's greater than $5 million, and the funding type is seed or Series A, so it's kind of like an early round funding, and it's a big one and it's pretty recent, then we give it 3 points. Then I said if it's within 12 months, but the amounts, like we have no idea what the amount is, maybe it's like undisclosed or something, or it's smaller, but it's still an early stage one, then we give it 2 points. If it was in the past year, but we don't know anything else, then we'll give it 1 point. And then if we don't have any funding information or it doesn't fit anything above, then it will just be 0 points. And then after that, I've just created this little function over here, this JavaScript function that will get today's date in the same format as our last funding date. So it just kind of looks like this, right? So it just outputs it in the same format. And then I've just plugged in the funding amount, the date, and the type, which we got in the previous steps, the information extractor step. And then I just plug that in to the prompt, and then I just get it to output score over here, which is going to be a number. So if we run that, we should also get 3 points for that. Yeah, which is what we get over here. So for the two scoring kind of elements that we have, this one gave 3 and then this one gave 3. And the next step for the score is that we want to just combine the score together. So in this case, we just select the business score type and the funding score from the previous steps, and we just add them together. And that will give us 6. If my math is correct, which it is, great. So that's the scoring. Like scoring, you can build it in so many different ways, and it just really depends on your business and what you find important. This example just uses kind of 2 different methods to score. But yeah, as I said, it just really depends on what you're looking for specifically to build that scoring system. And after we've done the scoring, we want to determine what a good score is and what a not so good score is, so that we can prioritize whether the lead is super duper important and we need to contact them right away, or it's not that important and we can just send them to a marketing campaign or whatever we want to do to nurture them. Like maybe we have like a product that's like a more low tier product that we can offer to them, but for the really, really high scoring ones, we want to contact them and book a meeting, for example. So in this stage, we just check like, are they important or not? And for this one, we just say, okay, if the score was greater or equal to 3, so let's say it was like a deep tech, but they don't have funding, maybe that's still good enough for us. Or they might be a marketplace, but they got funding. That might be another example. And obviously this is subjective. It just really depends on what you would deem a good score to be. In this case, we're just saying 3 or above. So if we hit that, it's going to hit true, and then it's going to send that to our high priority lead flow, right? In this case, I've just put a Slack message, but obviously if it's very high priority, you could send them an email right away, right? You could run another LLM to craft a custom email to send to them, or you could send it like I have to Slack so that someone could contact them immediately. You could build an LLM here or another agent to go find a contact number or something like that to just kind of signal, okay, we really need to contact this person, we need to get more information. Maybe you'll do more research as a result of them being a high priority. You can also send the information to your CRM, right, into like a priority sort of pipeline. There's a lot of different options. There's many things you can do here, but the main purpose here is that we want to focus our attention on the higher priority people and not on the lower priority people, which is exactly what this automation is going to allow you to do. So after that, all we have to do is just run this last one. So in this example, I just wrote a message which just says, hey, I found a qualified lead from our web form and they're super duper important. and then I just put the name, email, website, as well as the information that we extracted that we wanted to know about them. So here we've got John at Cusp AI, www.cusp AI over here for the website. And then I just put the business type, the funding amount, the date, and the last funding type here. So after that, you can just hit execute step, and then we get a message over here in our Slack, and that tells us, okay, this is really important. Yeah, so that's basically it for this automation. If the score is lower, so the example I used before of Shopee, which was a marketplace that didn't have funding, that would trigger this other workflow, which I showed. Which for this one, it's just sending it's sending the lead to an email campaign. But in the same case, you can just send it to whichever sort of pipeline you have for more low priority leads. But that's how it works. If you have any questions or you want to understand how to modify this for your own business or come up with a scoring system, then please feel free to leave a comment, send me an email, whatever you need, and I'll be happy to help you out. But for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.